Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Meridian, watching the stars through the main screen. The ship floated quietly in space between human and alien territory. For 12 years, this had been a peaceful place. Today felt different. Ambassador. Lisa Carter walked onto the bridge looking tired but happy. She had just finished 3 days of talks with the Zephyrian aliens. The tall, crystal-like beings had agreed to share mining rights in the Tau sector. It seemed like a good deal for both sides. "How did it go?" Jake asked. Lisa smiled. "Better than expected. High-resonance Vexithara was very reasonable. We can start mining operations next month." Colonel Ben Harris, the ship's military advisor, looked up from his station. "Something feels wrong about this. The Zephyrians have never been this easy to work with." Jake nodded. Ben was right to be careful. The Zephyrians thought they were better than all other species in the galaxy. They had 47 star systems under their control. Their crystal bodies could live for thousands of years. They spoke, through musical sounds that most humans found beautiful but strange. "Maybe they're finally learning to work with us," Lisa said. She wanted to believe the peace would last. The bridge was quiet for a moment. Then Lieutenant Roy Baker at the communications station suddenly sat up straight. His face went pale. "Captain, I'm getting emergency signals from the Kepler system." "Put it on screen," Jake ordered. The main screen changed to show a video message from colony leader Helen Murphy on Kepler Prime. Behind her, explosions lit up the sky. Her voice was full of fear. "This is Kepler Prime to all human ships. We are under attack. Zephyrian fighters appeared without warning. They're hitting civilian targets. We need help now." The message cut to static. Then another signal came through from Kepler 7. The colony leader there was running as he spoke into his communicator. "Zephyrian ships everywhere. They hit the schools first, then the hospitals. This isn't a military strike. They're trying to kill everyone." Jake felt his stomach drop. "Get me all channels from the Kepler system." More messages came through. Kepler 4 reported Zephyrian ground troops landing near evacuation centers. Kepler 2 said alien ships were bombing farms and water treatment plants. Every colony in the system was under attack. Ben Harris was already pulling up tactical displays. "Captain, this is a coordinated assault. They must have planned this for months." Lisa stared at the screen in shock. "This can't be right. We just made a deal with them. Vexithara seemed genuine." Then a new transmission came through. This one was broadcast on all frequencies, meant for every human to hear. The musical voice of high-resonance Vexithara filled the bridge. "Humans of the lesser species," the aliens' translated words said. "You have committed crimes against the ancient crystal formations of our ancestors. Your mining operations have disturbed sacred networks that took 10,000 years to form. This is genocide against our crystalline heritage." Jake and his crew listened in growing anger as Vexithara continued. "The peace treaty is now void. You have 30 standard days to begin evacuation from all disputed territories. This includes 60% of your current space. You will also pay reparations equal to the value of the destroyed crystal networks. Failure to comply will result in total war." The transmission ended. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Ben Harris spoke first. 60% of human space? They want us to give up hundreds of colonies." Lisa was shaking her head. "The mining sites we discussed were empty space. There were no crystal formations there. We checked." "They planned this," Jake said quietly. "The negotiations were just a distraction. While we were talking, they moved their fleets into position. More reports came in from across human territory. Zephyrian attack groups had hit 12 different systems at the same time. They were using ships and weapons that intelligence said they didn't have. Someone had been lying about their military strength." Lieutenant Baker looked up from his station. "Captain, I'm getting similar attacks reported from the Ross system, Wolf 359 and the Centauri colonies. This is happening everywhere." Jake walked to the center of the bridge. His crew looked to him for orders. These were good people who had served with him for years. They trusted him to make the right choice. "Set course for Earth," he said. "Maximum speed." "Sir?" Lisa asked. Shouldn't we try to help the colonies? We're one ship against entire fleets, Jake replied. The Terran Defense Council needs to know what's really happening here. They need to know the Zephyrians were never serious about peace. As the Meridian turned toward Earth, more emergency transmissions filled the communications channels. Colony after colony reported Zephyrian attacks. The aliens were not just hitting military targets. They were destroying everything humans had built. Ben Harris studied the attack patterns on his tactical display. Captain, look at this. They're hitting our newest colonies first, the ones with the biggest populations. Jake looked at the data. Ben was right. The Zephyrians were targeting the places where humans were growing fastest. They wanted to stop human expansion completely. They're not just breaking the peace treaty, Jake realized. They're trying to push us back to Earth. Lisa sat down heavily in her chair. I actually believed we could work together. I thought Vexithera wanted peace. Maybe some of them did, Jake said. But their leaders had other plans. The ship jumped to faster than light speed, racing toward Earth. Behind them, human colonies burned under Zephyrian attack. The 12 years of peace were over, ended by aliens who thought humans were too weak to fight back. But Jake Morrison had a feeling the Zephyrians had made a big mistake. He had served in the last war against them. He remembered how quickly humans could adapt when their backs were against the wall. The aliens might think they were attacking the same enemy they had fought 12 years ago. They were wrong. As the Meridian flew through space toward Earth, Jake thought about what the Zephyrians didn't know. They didn't know about the new shipyards hidden in asteroid fields. They didn't know about the weapons research that had continued during the peace. They didn't know that humans had spent 12 years preparing for this exact situation. The Zephyrians thought they were fighting weak humans who would surrender when faced with superior force. Instead, they had just woken up an enemy that had been quietly getting ready for war. The grand chambers of the Terran Defense Council buzzed with quiet activity. Admiral Rebecca Stone sat at the head of the massive table, her fingers drumming slowly on the polished surface. Around her, the most powerful military leaders in human space waited for Captain Morrison's report. Jake Morrison stood at attention in the center of the room. He had traveled for 3 days to reach Earth, and his uniform still showed the strain of the journey. Behind him, a holographic display showed the burning colonies in the Kepler system. The attacks were coordinated, Jake said, his voice steady despite the terrible news he carried. At least 12 systems hit at the same time. The Zephyrians used ships we didn't know they had. Our intelligence was completely wrong about their fleet strength. General Kevin Brooks, head of strategic operations, leaned back in his chair. A small smile played at the corners of his mouth. Tell us about their demands, Captain. Jake activated the recording of Vexithera's broadcast. The alien's translated voice filled the chamber, demanding 60% of human territory and massive reparations for disturbed crystal formations that had been empty space during the mining surveys. When the recording ended, General Brooks began to laugh. It started as a quiet chuckle, then grew louder. Soon he was laughing so hard he had to wipe tears from his eyes. Admiral Stone's expression shifted from concern to something that looked almost like satisfaction. She turned to the other council members, and Jake saw similar looks on their faces. These were not the reactions he had expected. 60% of our territory, Admiral Stone said, shaking her head. For crystals they abandoned 12,000 years ago. Dr. Helen Parker, the council's chief scientist, stood up from her seat. She was a small woman with gray hair, but her voice carried authority when she spoke. Captain Morrison, what you've witnessed confirms everything we suspected about Zephyrian psychology. They think in terms of centuries, not years. They assume every species plans the same way they do. Jake looked confused. Ma'am, I don't understand. General Brooks stood up and walked to a large display screen on the wall. With a few touches, he brought up a star map showing human space. Green dots marked peaceful colonies. Red dots showed military installations. There were far more red dots than Jake remembered. Captain, what do you see here? Brooks asked. Jake studied the map. More military bases than we had 12 years ago. A lot more. Project Deep Harbor, Admiral Stone explained. We've been building it since the day the last war ended. Hidden shipyards and asteroid fields, manufacturing centers on uninhabited worlds, research facilities that don't appear on any public records. Commander Roy Baker stepped forward from his position near the wall. Jake recognized him from the Outer Rim territories. Roy had been commanding deep space patrols for years. "Captain, while you were conducting peace negotiations, we were preparing for war," Roy said. "The Zephyrians think they're attacking the same human military they fought 12 years ago. They have no idea what we've actually been building." Dr. Parker activated another display. This one showed comparative fleet sizes. 12 years ago, humanity had maybe 300 major warships. The current display showed over 900. "We tripled our fleet during the peace," she explained. "But we built them in secret. New designs, new weapons, new tactics. Everything specifically created to counter Zephyrian technology." Jake stared at the numbers. "How did we hide all this?" "The same way we hid our real losses from the last war," Admiral Stone said. "The Zephyrians are terrible at understanding deception. They say exactly what they mean and expect everyone else to do the same. It never occurred to them that we might be lying about our capabilities." A communication officer entered the chamber and handed Admiral Stone a data pad. She read it quickly, then looked up with grim satisfaction. "The Zephyrians just broadcast their ultimatum to every human world. 30 days to begin evacuation or face total annihilation." She set the pad down. "They're expecting panic and surrender." General Brooks laughed again. "Panic? Roy, tell the captain what's happening at the recruitment centers." Commander Baker smiled. "Biggest volunteer surge in human history. Young people are lining up around the block to join the military. Manufacturing worlds are switching to wartime production without being asked. The Zephyrians threatened us and humans are treating it like a challenge." Jake felt something shift in his understanding. "You wanted them to attack." "We knew they would eventually," Admiral Stone said. "Zephyrian culture doesn't allow for permanent equals. They would always see us as a threat to be eliminated. The only question was when." Dr. Parker pulled up another display showing Zephyrian fleet movements. "They're positioning their forces around what they think are our most important worlds. Earth, Mars, the manufacturing centers. Classic siege tactics that would have worked 12 years ago. What they don't know," General Brooks said, "is that our real strength isn't in those obvious places. It's in the hidden bases they don't even know exist." Admiral Stone stood up and walked to the main display. With a gesture, she activated a new map. This one showed the true extent of human military preparation. Bases hidden in asteroid fields, mobile shipyards that could disappear into deep space, weapon platforms disguised as mining stations. "The Zephyrians are fighting the war they prepared for," she said. "We're going to fight the war we prepared for. Those are two very different things." A new message came through the communication system. Jake recognized the musical tones of Zephyrian speech, but this time it was coming from multiple sources. The aliens were coordinating their final positions for what they thought would be an easy victory. "They're giving us 30 days, Admiral," Stone said to the assembled council. "That's very generous of them." "What do we do with 30 days?" Jake asked. Commander Baker answered. "Finish our preparations. Move our hidden fleets into position. Let them think they have us surrounded while we actually surround them." General Brooks returned to his seat, still smiling. "Captain, the Zephyrians just made the biggest mistake in their species' history. They started a war with an enemy they don't understand, using tactics that won't work, at a time when we're stronger than we've ever been." Admiral Stone activated the communication system. She sent a single message back to the Zephyrian fleet on all their frequencies. The message was short and simple. 30 days received and acknowledged. See you soon." The chamber fell quiet as the message was transmitted. Jake realized he was witnessing something historic. This wasn't just a military response to an attack. This was humanity revealing that 12 years of apparent peace had actually been 12 years of preparation for this exact moment. "Ma'am," Jake said quietly, "what happens now?" Admiral Stone looked at him with an expression that was both sad and determined. "Now we show them what humans do when someone threatens our families. We show them what we learned from the last war, and we make sure they never threaten anyone again." The meeting was over. As the council members filed out to their various commands, Jake remained standing in the center of the room. He thought about the Zephyrian attacks, the burning colonies, and the aliens' confident demands. Then he thought about the hidden fleets, the secret weapons, and the prepared defenses that were about to be revealed. The Zephyrians expected fear and surrender. They were going to get something very different. The 30 days passed faster than anyone expected. Admiral Rebecca Stone stood in the rebuilt Luna Command Center, watching dozens of screens that showed human fleets moving into position across the galaxy. After 12 years of secret preparation, it was finally time to act. Captain Lisa Murphy stood on the bridge of the UES Titan, one of the largest ships ever built by humans. The massive vessel had been constructed in the hidden shipyards of the asteroid belt, along with 49 others, just like it. The Zephyrians had no idea these ships existed. Lisa looked at her crew with pride. They had trained for years in secret, learning tactics that no alien species had ever seen. Her weapons officer was Lieutenant Danny Ross, a young man who could hit targets that computers said were impossible. Her navigation officer was Commander Amy Chen, who could pilot the huge ship like it was a fighter craft. "All stations report ready, Captain," Danny said from his position. "Good," Lisa replied. "Today we show them what humans have been building." On Mars, Colonel Sam Turner walked through the final production lines of the new marine assault gear. Rows of advanced combat suits hung ready for use. Each suit was designed specifically to fight Zephyrian soldiers, with weapons that could shatter crystal and armor that could survive in any environment. Sergeant Kate Wilson picked up one of the new rifles and tested its weight. "These sonic disruptors really work against their crystal bodies?" "Better than we hoped," Sam said. "The frequency patterns Dr. Parker developed don't just hurt them. They cause complete structural failure. A Zephyrian hit by one of these weapons literally falls apart." Private Mike Davis, barely 20 years old, raised his hand. "Colonel, why didn't we use these weapons in the last war?" "Because we didn't understand their biology then," Sam explained. 12 years of peace gave us time to study captured Zephyrian technology. We learned their weaknesses. Back on Luna, Dr. Helen Parker worked with the intelligence division on their psychological warfare protocols. The screens around her showed Zephyrian fleet positions throughout human space. The aliens had arranged themselves exactly as human planners had predicted. "They're using the same formation they used 12 years ago," she told Admiral Stone over the communication link. "They haven't adapted their tactics at all." "That's what we counted on," Stone replied. "Are the frequency disruptors ready?" "Transmitters are in position. When we activate them, Zephyrian fleet communication will become chaos. They won't be able to coordinate their defenses." The Zephyrians spent their 30 days moving into what they thought were perfect attack positions. Their fleets surrounded the major human worlds, ready to demonstrate their superior firepower. High-Resonance Vexithera commanded the primary battle group at Wolf 359, confident that the coming battle would be over quickly. The Zephyrian fleet consisted of beautiful crystal ships that looked more like art than weapons. Each vessel was grown, rather than built, shaped from living crystal that could repair itself and adapt to different situations. Their weapons used harmonic resonance to tear apart enemy ships from the inside. Vexithera stood in the command chamber of the flagship, surrounded by other high-ranking Zephyrians. The crystalline beings communicated through musical tones that created complex harmonies when they spoke together. "The human deadline expires in 1 hour," Vexithera announced. "Prepare to demonstrate our power. Target their largest colonies first." Sub-Resonance Kylthan, the fleet's tactical coordinator, played a questioning melody. "Should we offer them one final chance to surrender?" "No," Vexithera replied with a harsh discord. "They had 30 days to accept our generous terms. Now, they will learn the price of defying the collective." But the Zephyrians had made a critical error. They expected the humans to wait for the deadline, to spend 30 days in fear before the attack began. They didn't expect humans to strike first. Admiral Stone stood in the Luna Command Center as the final seconds counted down. Around her, dozens of officers waited for her command. On screens throughout the room, human fleets held position in deep space invisible to Zephyrian sensors. Operation Starfall is authorized, Stone said calmly. All units execute. Across human space, the hidden fleets suddenly appeared. Ships that had been hiding in asteroid fields behind moons and in the depths of space decloaked and moved to attack positions. The Zephyrians had thought they were surrounding human worlds. Instead, they found themselves surrounded. Captain Lisa Murphy's UES Titan led Task Force Alpha against Vexithera's battle group at Wolf 359. The massive human ship appeared without warning, followed by 20 other vessels of similar size. The Zephyrians had never seen anything like them. All weapons fire at will, Lisa ordered. The Titan's main guns unleashed a barrage of kinetic projectiles that moved at incredible speed. The Zephyrian shields designed to stop energy weapons offered no protection against solid metal moving at high velocity. The first alien ship shattered like glass. Lieutenant Danny Ross worked his weapons controls with precision. Direct hit on their command ship. Their shields can't stop our projectiles. The battle quickly turned into a disaster for the Zephyrians. Their beautiful crystal ships were fragile compared to human armor. Their resonance weapons, which had been so effective 12 years ago, couldn't penetrate the new adaptive shielding that human engineers had developed. Commander Amy Chen piloted the Titan through the enemy formation with impossible grace. The huge ship moved like a dancer, avoiding Zephyrian fire while positioning for devastating attacks. Their movement patterns are exactly what we predicted, she reported. They're still using tactics from the last war. On the captured Zephyrian flagship, Vexithara watched in horror as the human fleet destroyed ship after ship. The harmonious communication of the crystal beings became discordant with panic and confusion. How do they have so many ships? Kylthan sang in a frequency that expressed complete bewilderment. Our intelligence said they only had 300 vessels. They lied to us, Vexithara realized. For 12 years, they made us believe they were weak. The psychological warfare began when Dr. Parker activated the frequency disruptors. Suddenly, Zephyrian fleet communication became a chaos of conflicting signals. Ships that had moved in perfect coordination now struggled to understand basic orders. Colonel Sam Turner's Marines launched their assault on disabled Zephyrian vessels. The boarding pods, small craft designed to punch through enemy hulls, delivered human soldiers directly into alien ships. Sergeant Kate Wilson led the first boarding team onto a Zephyrian cruiser. Her sonic disruptor weapon charged with a high whine, then fired. The crystalline defender in front of her literally fell apart, its body structure unable to survive the weapon's frequency assault. These weapons work better than advertised, she reported over the communication link. The Zephyrians can't fight back effectively. Private Mike Davis and his squad moved through the crystal corridors of the alien ship. The Zephyrian crew they encountered seemed more confused than hostile. Many of them simply stood still, unable to process the rapid human assault. They're not adapting to our tactics, Mike observed. It's like they can't understand what we're doing. The battle lasted only 6 hours. When it ended, the primary Zephyrian battle group had been completely destroyed or captured. Vexithara himself was taken prisoner when his flagship surrendered. Rather than face complete annihilation, Admiral Stone received the reports from all fronts. The simultaneous attacks had succeeded beyond expectations. Human fleets had struck 12 different Zephyrian positions, and every engagement had ended in victory. Casualties? She asked. Minimal, came the reply. The Zephyrians were completely unprepared for our new tactics and technology. Captain Lisa Murphy stood on the bridge of the Titan, looking at the wreckage of the Zephyrian fleet floating around Wolf 359. Her crew had performed perfectly, and their ship had taken almost no damage. Set course for the Zephyrian border, she ordered. Time to take this war to their territory. The tide had turned completely. In one day, humanity had revealed the true extent of their preparation and capability. The Zephyrians, who had started the war expecting easy victory, now faced an enemy they had completely underestimated. The real war was just beginning. The Luna Command Center had become the center of the largest military operation in human history. Admiral Rebecca Stone stood before a massive display showing the progress of human fleets as they pushed deeper into Zephyrian territory. What had started as a defensive war had become something much larger. In a secure holding cell beneath the command center, high-resonance Vexithera sat in confused silence. The crystalline being who had once spoken so confidently about human weakness now faced the reality of complete defeat. His harmonic translator had been adjusted so he could speak with his captors. Admiral Stone entered the cell accompanied by Dr. Helen Parker. The alien looked up at them, his crystal body reflecting the harsh lights in fractured patterns. "I do not understand," Vexithera said, his translated voice filled with bewilderment. "Your species should have required 50 years to develop the technology you deployed against us. How did you advance so quickly?" Stone sat down across from the alien prisoner. "We didn't advance quickly. We advanced constantly. For 12 years, every day, we got a little bit better." Dr. Parker activated a small display showing comparative timelines. "Your species thinks in terms of centuries. You plan for long-term goals and assume your enemies do the same. But humans adapt during conflict, not before it." "That is impossible," Vexithera protested. "No species can improve while fighting. War degrades capability. It does not enhance it." "For you, maybe," Stone replied. "For humans, war is when we learn fastest." Meanwhile, Captain Lisa Murphy pushed deeper into Zephyrian space with her expanded fleet. The UES Titan now led 50 human ships toward the heart of the collective's territory. Behind them, they left a trail of defeated alien fleets and captured worlds. The Zephyrians had tried to adapt their tactics, but their efforts were clumsy and desperate. They began using weapons and strategies that might have worked against the human military of 12 years ago. Against the current human forces, these tactics were worse than useless. Lieutenant Danny Ross studied the tactical reports from the latest engagement. "Captain, they're still trying to use resonance weapons against our adaptive shielding. It's like they can't learn from their failures." "They can't," Lisa replied. Dr. Parker's briefings explained this. Zephyrian culture doesn't allow for rapid change. They literally cannot adapt fast enough to keep up with us. Commander Amy Chen looked up from her navigation station. "We're approaching the Crystalline Nebula. Intelligence says that's where they're making their final stand." The Crystalline Nebula was the most sacred location in Zephyrian space. Ancient crystal formations grew throughout the region, creating a natural fortress that had never been breached by any enemy. The aliens had concentrated their remaining fleets there, confident that no force could penetrate their defenses. They were wrong. Colonel Sam Turner stood in the briefing room of his transport ship, addressing 500 Marines who would lead the assault on the Zephyrian home system. These soldiers wore the most advanced combat suits human technology could produce, and they carried weapons specifically designed to exploit every weakness in Zephyrian biology. "The aliens think their home system is impregnable," Sam told his troops. "They've built defenses over thousands of years, but they built those defenses to stop enemies who think like them." Sergeant Kate Wilson raised her hand. "What makes us different, sir?" "We don't try to overcome their defenses," Sam explained. "We ignore them. While they expect us to attack their strongest points, we'll hit the places they never thought to protect." Private Mike Davis, now a veteran of several boarding actions, checked his sonic disruptor weapon. "Sir, intelligence. Reports say there are millions of Zephyrians in the home system. What if they all fight to the death?" "They won't," Sam replied. "Zephyrian psychology doesn't work that way. Once they understand they cannot win, they will surrender to preserve their species. The key is making them understand quickly." General Kevin Brooks coordinated the final assault from his command ship at the edge of Zephyrian space. Around him, the largest human fleet ever assembled prepared for the battle that would end the war. "All units report ready," his communications officer announced. "Dr. Parker, are the psychological warfare systems operational?" Brooks asked. "All frequency disruptors are active," came the reply from Luna. "When we begin the assault, Zephyrian command structure will collapse within minutes." The attack on the Zephyrian home system began at dawn on the alien world. Human ships appeared throughout the system simultaneously, Having used stealth technology to approach undetected, the aliens found themselves facing enemies in every direction. Captain Lisa Murphy led the primary assault force against the orbital defenses. The crystalline structures were beautiful, grown rather than built, with weapon systems integrated into their living crystal matrix. They had protected the Zephyrian homeworld for millennia. They lasted less than an hour against human kinetic weapons. Their defenses are optimized against energy-based attacks, Lisa reported as the Titan's guns shattered another ancient fortress. Our projectile weapons go through them like they're made of glass, which essentially they were. Colonel Turner's Marines launched their assault on the planet's surface. The landing was unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever experienced. Instead of trying to establish beachheads and advance slowly, human forces landed simultaneously at hundreds of locations across the planet. Sergeant Wilson's squad took control of a Zephyrian command center without firing a shot. The alien defenders simply stood paralyzed as sonic disruptors rendered their crystal bodies immobile. "They're not fighting back," she reported. "It's like they can't process what's happening to them." Private Davis and his team captured a major communication hub. The Zephyrian technicians they found there were trying to coordinate defenses using methods that had worked for thousands of years. Against human tactics, their efforts were completely ineffective. "Sir, I think they're trying to call for help," Davis reported. "But our jamming systems are blocking all their communications." The battle for the Zephyrian homeworld lasted 3 days. When it ended, the crystalline beings who had ruled 47 star systems found themselves completely defeated by an enemy they had thought they understood. Admiral Stone stood in the ruins of the High Resonance Chamber, the most sacred building on the Zephyrian homeworld. Around her, defeated alien leaders waited to hear their fate. "You have 2 choices," she told them through the universal translator. "Unconditional surrender, or we continue this war until your species no longer exists." The lead Zephyrian, an ancient being whose name translated as eternal harmony, played a melody that expressed complete submission. "We surrender," the alien said. "We accept human authority over all collective territories." Later, back in the holding cell on Luna, Vexithera asked Admiral Stone the question that had been troubling him since his capture. "Why did your people laugh when we made our demands?" he asked. "We offered terms that should have terrified you." Stone smiled sadly. "We laughed because you threatened us with something you couldn't do, against enemies you didn't understand. You demanded 60% of our territory from people who had been preparing for war since the day peace was signed." "But why prepare for war during peace?" Vexithera asked. "Because we knew you would never accept us as equals," Stone replied. "Your culture requires you to be superior to everyone else. We knew that eventually you would try to destroy us, so we got ready." Dr. Parker entered the cell carrying a datapad. "Admiral, the integration protocols are ready. The Zephyrian colonies have voted to accept human protection." Stone looked at Vexithera. "We're not going to rule your people like conquerors. We're going to teach them what we learned about adaptation and growth. Maybe next time they'll understand their enemies before they start a war." 6 months later, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of a new kind of ship. The UES Harmony carried both human and Zephyrian crew members, exploring regions of space that neither species had seen before. His first officer was a young Zephyrian named Resonance Cathera, one of the first of her species to understand human methods of rapid adaptation. "Captain," she said, her harmonic voice now familiar and welcome. "I have a question about the war." "What is it?" Jake asked. "Why did humans show mercy to us after we attacked your colonies?" Jake looked out at the stars ahead of them. "Because the best way to end a war is to make your enemies into friends. The galaxy is big enough for all of us, as long as we're willing to work together." The young Zephyrian played a melody that expressed deep thought. "My people spent thousands of years believing we were superior to all others. It took humans 3 days to show us how wrong we were." "Now you know better," Jake replied, "and that knowledge will make both our species stronger." The war that the Zephyrians had started to prove their superiority had ended with humanity teaching them a new way to think. Across the galaxy, other alien species had watched the conflict and learned a valuable lesson. When humans laugh at your threats, It means they've already won the war.